Sometimes video games get way too big for their own boots. Completely forgetting they're a form of entertainment, they decide to be all big and clever and mess with your brain. And listen to me, video game, ain't no one messing with my brain. Not you, not my parents, not my teachers at school. I will remain an idiot, thank you very much. While most of the time this can actually result in a pretty decent experience, sometimes games do take it way too far and hurl out a level that's just too complicated for its own good. Cue confusion, getting stuck, and if you're old like me, ringing the Nintendo hotline. They always knew the score. I'm Simon from What Culture, and this is 10 insanely confusing video game levels you totally got lost in. Number 10. The Water Temple in The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Honestly, the Water Temple in Ocarina of Time ruined me as a kid. This may be my favourite game ever, but this dungeon is just a nightmare from start to finish. Asking you to continually raise and lower water levels so you can get to different parts of the level, it becomes like a maths lesson after a while. You have to sit there with a pad and think, well, if I take it here, I can go there, but if I shift this, that'll happen. Before you know it, you just sat there drooling because you've no idea where to go. The developers behind Zelda even admitted later on that in hindsight the Water Temple was a little too hard, but that still didn't stop them from making it even harder in the Master Quest version of the game. Thankfully, the 3DS one is a little easier, but still. Number 9. The Woodside Apartments in Silent Hill 2. If it's not bad enough that you're terrified, because Silent Hill 2 is terrifying, one of the first buildings you come across in the game is that of Woodside Apartments. Now you're already a little confused because you've somehow received a letter from your dead wife, and the atmosphere has been set to full-on dread. The last thing you need is a block of flats that's harder to work out than quantum physics. But alas, that's what you get. Every corridor looks the same to the last, no matter what floor you're on, and the map may as well be toilet paper. It doesn't even tell you where you are. It just has a bunch of red scribbles that show you which doors are locked. Cheers. This is obviously the point. You're meant to feel out of your element and confused. But it's not half hard to try and figure out. Number 8. Any dungeon in Elder Scrolls 2 Daggerfall. Before the Elder Scrolls became one of the most popular franchises in all of gaming, it was, if we're being honest, a bit of a mess. That doesn't mean it didn't have good ideas or help push the medium forward, as it absolutely did. But some of the design choices were bonkers. If we jump back to the second game, this is beyond evident. Someone had the bright idea to make all the already overly sized dungeons procedurally generated, meaning there was no way for you to figure out the actual layout. There was a map system in place, but it was as helpful as a blind lollipop lady. It was actually easier to get a pen and piece of paper and draw it out yourself. I don't want to be drawing when I'm playing video games. I want to be chopping monsters' limbs off. It was so bad, some people just gave up. Don't blame them. Number 7. Vivek in the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. I respect Morrowind's moxie, I really do. Refusing to hold a player's hand at all, it asks you to act like a real human, right down to the point of using road signs or, can you believe it, in-game characters helping you to hunt down locations. Just put a damn arrow on the screen and let me follow it. Pander to me! Ultimately, this is one of the reasons the Elder Scrolls 3 is adored as it is, but it also made it far more difficult than it needed to be at times, especially when you got to the main city of Vivek. Made up of 9 pyramid-like islands that are connected to each other by walkways, they all look the same. So at times you assumed you'd gone to a new one, when actually you'd doubled back on yourself. You're basically a gerbil trapped in a maze, and that was not something that was advertised on the box. Number 6. Nightmares in Max Payne. Every time you have a nightmare in Max Payne, things get really dark really quickly. If it wasn't bad enough that these segments of the game were scary, you're also basically stuck in a never-ending loop, and trying to figure out how to escape is near impossible. Or at least it feels that way. You know what the trick to freedom is? To follow the cries and scream of a baby. Oh great, that makes things much more comfortable and isn't freaky at all. The problem is, it's really hard to tell whether the wailing is getting further away or closer. There's a lot of guesswork. Then you've got to try and get through some weird floating platform section that can often just see you fall to your doom. If you know what you're doing, it'll take mere minutes. If you don't, put the kettle on. It's gonna be a while. Number 5. 8-4 in Super Mario Bros. 8-4 looks like your typical Bowser Castle. It feels like 1-2, and if you could smell in Mario games, well, you get the idea. Thing is, it's not. At all. Instead of asking you to do what most early titles featuring the plumber did, e.g. get from left to right, 8-4 actually wanted you to use your brain and figure out what the correct path was. You did this by figuring out which pipes you're supposed to jump into, but the only way to reveal that information is with guesswork. So it's trial and error with the horrible consequence that you keep coming back to the same place when you get it wrong. Just to kick you in the teeth, there's also 2 Bowsers on this level, one of which is fake and basically a punishment for going in the wrong direction. you, Nintendo. Number 4. The Great Maze in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. To try and add a bit of flavour to proceedings, Super Smash Bros. Brawl included an adventure mode where you could pick your favourite gaming hero and then go whip some ass for a while. It was straightforward fun. Until you got to the final level. Asking you to run a gauntlet of all the bosses in the game, which straight away should send danger signals to your brain because that's never fun. It also asked that you found said bosses by locating randomly placed doors. Now, these doors are scattered all over the place, so the only way you could figure it out is to use a map. A map! Don't use a map in Street Fighter, and you shouldn't have to use one in Super Smash Bros. It basically becomes a Metroidvania type experience, but that is completely missing the point. Just want to punch someone in the face. Number 3. Blighttown in Dark Souls. Well, surprise, surprise. Dark Souls made a list of over-confusing, convoluted messes. No prizes for that one. But yes, when you reach Blighttown in the original Dark Souls, it becomes an awful place to try and navigate. Firstly, it's beyond dark, so you'll be missing paths you're meant to go down constantly, and even enemies that are hidden in the shadows. The idea is to keep heading down until you can't head down anymore, but it's so difficult to do this, you keep doubling back on yourself and you have no idea why. Even when you're out, From Software keeps throwing crap at you. There's not only a boss to contend with, but then some strange water wheel thing you've got to climb up. Sure, once you're out you feel a wave of satisfaction, but the question remains, was it worth it in the first place? Probably not. Number 2, Limbo in Doom. You know what I want to do in Doom? Shoot things. In the head, with a big gun. And then watch as everything explodes. That's Doom. So why on earth is a teleportation level included in the original? Obviously there to try and bring some diversity to proceedings, you do indeed have to bounce around using a bunch of teleports trying to find out where you're meant to go. There's no rhyme or reason to it, however. You just keep trying and hope it all works out. Just to make matters worse, there's also loads of switches you've got to press, but you have no idea what they actually did, because they happened away from your field of view. So now you've got to get back on the teleporters and bounce around some more until you find out what you achieved. Does that sound like fun? No. No, it does not. Number 1, the library in Halo. Bungie seems to have a knack for this. In nearly every Halo game, there's one level that just makes utterly no sense, even though the rest are near flawless. Bonkers. While the library certainly had a terrific atmosphere, it was nothing more than a bunch of dank corridors and chambers that you couldn't tell apart. Because of that, you had no idea where you were going. And then there was the endless waves of the flood you had to deal with while trying to figure that out. It was horrendously tough, and to be fair, playing it with a mate did have its charms. But that doesn't mean it needed to be this vicious. If you can do it on legendary difficulty, forget about it. Your name will go down in Halo lore. Even though it won't, because in reality, Halo is nothing to do with you. Know of any other games with confusing levels? Let us know in the comments below, and then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can even come follow me on Twitter at SimonMiller316. I'm Simon from What Culture, and I'll chat to you again soon.